Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Wednesday, the Leading Change episode, this week with Isshai Kamara. Hey Isha, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
So today we talk change, and of course change is a big part of the Scrum Master role. We're working with change all the time. And we want to hear a story of one of those change processes that you were involved with, Isha. And as you go through the story, walk us through the steps of that change process. And as you go through those, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Okay. So I actually wanted to talk about a story of how I transitioned from a waterfall project into an Agile project. So essentially, I was the project manager on this large scale effort, and I did transition over to becoming a Scrum Master to our client side once I took on that role. And so in seeing how things were ran, trying to build out a software development solution with waterfall, it was a nightmare. And essentially it got to be so bad in terms of having deliverables that were ready for Congress, that it had a lot of congressional oversight. And so one of the things that, Congress implemented was to have a team of people to work on this project and to make sure that there was a success. And so we, a few of the issues that we had in Waterfall was our requirements gathering. At the time, we weren't doing requirements with our developers. The testing would be prolonged. There were a ton of defects as well, a lot of manual testing. And, when I became a Scrum Master on the project, I got to put on the role of a Scrum Master and, really help with, changing those processes or being a part of the change. We began having better requirement sessions. And, my participation in that previous project really helped my company to really shape how we would even work with the team moving forward. So we would have, large scale requirement sessions with everyone involved, including the developers. And so if there were any questions, or challenges or concerns, it was immediately brought up there. Working with a dedicated Scrum team, one of the biggest values that our government client, got to achieve is seeing the demo, because it used to take 7 months to even see working software. And so, that was great for them to see working software every 2 weeks. One of the things I also liked about this transition is just, in working in this Agile space, you're able to see risks much sooner. We were able to complete our project in totality as much sooner than the expected delivery date as well. And so I would just say that, if you follow the frameworks, if you use the tools and techniques, and, you build trust coming out of a waterfall situation, you're definitely going to see the success of the implementation of Agile.
Absolutely. One thing that I'm curious about is how you went about transitioning the project. So if I understood correctly, there was one part of the project that was delivered using a waterfall approach, right? Mm-hmm. That included doing requirements without the involvement of the teams and doing testing only at the end. We're all familiar with that. But how were you able to move the team? And I'm imagining that many of the people who were in the waterfall project ended up being also in the Agile project. How was the transition managed? What was the set of things, kind of approaches, practices, trainings that you put in place mm-hmm. in order to move the team towards an Agile way of working?
Yeah. So as it relates to my aspect in it, one of the things that I did to lead change was number one, just to foster like team building exercises, because it was a bit, tough coming out of that type of situation. Because in order to build trust, you definitely have to be able to, be on one accord. So that's one of the things I did, just having team events, different team building exercises. And then from there, just making sure that we had really good communication with our stakeholders. So having a lot of stakeholder collaboration in our meetings as well. And just, again, really making sure that trust was there and being transparent in what it is that we collectively, in terms of our development team, was working on for our client. And so those are some of the things that I've done to help, to facilitate the change. But I work closely with my Agile coach and my RTE. And so it was more so of a collective effort as a whole with the improvement of the project.
Yeah, and it's important to have that support structure in place. Also, because it's not just a one team project, right? Like there are other aspects that go beyond the team, and to have that support, so that like kind of looking at how Agile is being used across the project. You talked about requirements as an example. Gathering requirements for multiple teams, of course, requires involving multiple teams, right? It's not just one Scrum Master.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we all actually went through SAFe training as an entire organization. Our government counterparts, everyone at the consulting firm I was working on, we all went through it together. And I think that really helped, keep us all on the same track as well.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, that very often the training is, if you have two entities, right, like the vendor and the buyer, they might go through training at different times and in different trainings even. But that's a good point, that actually, in order to facilitate the change, it's much better if we go through the training together. So how did you facilitate the change of the requirements process, though? Like, because it's not easy, first of all, to get everybody involved, and then also to kind of change the mindset from having someone in an ivory tower collecting requirements to then going and having those big sessions to collect requirements together, right?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I helped to do was actually to train my product owners. So my product owners were inexperienced as it relates to, being able to write requirements. And I have a requirements background. So, one of the things I led them through is a user story workshop, and really teaching not only them, but also the team as well, the development team, on how to write user stories, how to document bugs. But this was really helpful to them, because they were able to, fully work in their roles, as a product owner. They felt empowered to do their work as well.
And I can imagine that it was really hard for them, if they had worked in waterfall before, to actually come in and then kind of, first of all, write user stories, which is very different from writing requirements. And then also writing it in front of their teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you prepare them for that, change of mindset?
One of the things I did, one thing that I like to do is to find commonalities in things. So maybe I will give them an example of a current system they're working on now, or that they've worked with in the past, and just kind of give them the perspective, walking them through the persona, the value statement, and showing them what goes where. Finding that correlation really helps in order for them to, be able to write user stories effectively for their product.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us as Scrum Masters, it's really critical that we help our product owners to rise to the occasion, because you know what they say, whatever you put in is what comes out. And if the stories are not good quality, then definitely the products can't be either. So that's really an important aspect. Thank you for sharing that, Aisha.
You're welcome.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.